Today we are doing another amazing recap. If you enjoy this, please like and subscribe. If you have any requests, please let me know in the comments. Let's begin. The story starts by showing a large ominous red tower. We learn that a guild called the Black Dragon Guild has set out to raid the 40th floor. But they failed yet again. In a brightly lit press room, a man with glasses holds up his phone, capturing the moment as another man with long light brown hair stands confidently. The man in the red coat is the main character of today, as he is the #1 ranked hunter. The #1 ranked hunter looks unfazed by this. Flame Emperor raided the boss by himself again. The Flame Emperor is interviewed by the media. He does not really care that he set a new record today. Since the appearance of the tower, you, the Flame Emperor, are the only one to have defeated boss monsters by yourself. Against a vibrant purple background, the microphone is handed over. That's all, whatever. Can we do some shit about that shitty nickname first? The Flame Emperor says. Annoyed, he asks, why are you calling me with such a dumbass nickname when I have a proper name? Met with a stuttered, He watches a performance on his laptop, confused by the title Flame Emperor. What in the world is Flame Emperor? Flame Emperor, really? Why don't you call me Flame Retard while you're at it? It's fucking embarrassing. A young man with short, dark hair confesses, I'm envious. Alone in his sparsely furnished room, the young man hunches over his smartphone. I'm going to find and beat up the motherfucker that came up with this nickname. Sounds from the laptop. The screen displays a forum post titled, Did you see the Flame Emperor's interview? 3 figures stand in a hallway, their faces replaced with images, a gray cat looking confused, a young man listening intently, and a blonde-haired girl in a sailor collar making a point. The girl continues her animated explanation, what are you, a fan of the Flame Emperor? There's better people to defend online. I'm just stating facts. It's not like people don't know he's that kind of a person. The news networks put him on air despite knowing that. A 4th figure joins the conversation. Since when have they been dating? Yep, I have a friend who is a hunter, and he saw the 2 of them together. Bullshit. I'm friends with the Saintess and she said that's not true. Swift fingers type on a Korean keyboard. The message, I want to become like the Flame Emperor. The young man with dark hair contemplates the words echoing in his mind. I want to become like the Flame Emperor. I want to become like the Flame Emperor, repeats, fueling his fascination. The words, so Mr. Flame Emperor, hang in the air, followed by the odd observation. He's so amazing that they pay attention to every single word he says. The man with the sleek ponytail, caught off guard, hears whispers of admiration. He's also said to be really rich. I'm envious of that, too. Seriously, again with the Flame Emperor. Call me by my name. And, if the world was a novel, then someone like him would be the main character, right? Standing triumphantly amidst fallen monsters, bathed in the warm glow of a fiery background, the man with the ponytail brandishes his glowing sword. In an ordinary kitchen, the young man from before looks up in surprise, his simple life about to change. There are a lot of hard-working hunter applicants inspired by Mr. Yu Su-ha. Awakening to your skills as soon as you entered the tower in your early years. More newspaper clippings tell the tale. Defeating a boss monster that couldn't be cleared for 10 years in 1 month. You are truly a legendary hunter. To the aspiring hunters, could you give them a quick tip on the secret to success? The man in the red jacket sighs wearily, muttering, sigh, as he holds the microphone, his other hand tucked in his pocket. Holding up a white sheet of paper, the young man states firmly, I'm only going to say this once, so pay attention to it if you want or whatever. In the end, those who are destined to succeed will succeed. The man's face contorts with seriousness, a warning delivered with chilling intensity. But even if you succeed, don't start beef with me. A menacing grin spreads across the face of a pale-skinned character with sharp teeth, a threat escaping their lips. You will die. The man with the ponytail strides confidently through a throng of admirers, met with excited cries of, Am I Mr. Flame Emperor? What did you mean by that just now? The young man's question hangs in the air, the name, Mr. Flame Emperor, echoing around him. Sitting on his bed, the young man absorbs the information displayed on his device. With that, we will end our special report. In the quiet solitude of his room, the young man kneels on the floor, lost in thought. Tears stream down the young man's face, a mixture of anguish and rage contorting his features as he spits. He makes me furious. If you're that successful, are you allowed to look down on people? Crouched on the floor, the young man reaches out to the wall plastered with news clippings, murmuring, "It feels like you look down on me and not the reporter." Hands pressed against the wall, if only I had the same kind of talent as the Flame Emperor. The thought echoing, then I wouldn't have to live in this tiny one-room apartment. Nor would I be looked down on as a lowly F-rank hunter without a single skill. I want to become like the Flame Emperor. He rages, clutching his hands. He is envious of the Flame Emperor's success. Clutching his arm, tears welling up in his eyes, I want to succeed with my own strength as well. If the Flame Emperor's skills were mine, how nice would that be? Suddenly, the young man gasps, a single word escaping his lips. Huh? The scene abruptly shifts to a brightly lit room, a large window glowing with an intense this is. Startled by an intense light. I've seen it in videos thousands of times. A young woman with her hair in a high ponytail dances excitedly in a well-lit room. Could it be? The golden card still hangs in the air. A skill card? An unprecedented foul envy. A young man with surprised eyes reacts to something unexpected. The blue pane reads, "The tower is astonished by your envy and throws you a skill." We're shown previous videos that the protagonist has watched of people receiving skills. He thinks to himself, this is kind of different from the skill awakenings I've seen in videos. The young man stands contemplatively in the kitchen. This is the moment I've wished for ever since I came here. He thinks to himself. He reaches out to the glowing card, his hand trembling with anticipation. He grabs the golden card. As a skill that's greater than S rank. Glowing blue and yellow lines and squares depict the digital creation of a skill card. A dark digital interface displays a chilling skill description, the ability to copy skills by being killed. Hoover, you will die. A dark-haired man with a contemplative expression ponders the immense power of stealing skills from slain enemies. Tears stream down the young man's face as he cries out, visibly distressed and shocked. He realizes that he will die if he uses the skill. The young man sits on his bed reading the skill he received. What the fuck kind of skill is this? A sprawling city, dominated by towering skyscrapers, stretches out below. A crimson tower, crafted from intricate metal, pierces a star-studded sky, its base wreathed in swirling white clouds. A young boy and an older man stand in a grassy field, their gazes drawn to the majestic tower dominating the horizon. Amidst a raging inferno, a man with a glowing orange sword confronts a colossal green serpent, its jaws agape, revealing a fiery maw. In a bustling marketplace, a bearded man excitedly recounts a heroic tale, his animated gestures captivating an unseen audience. A middle-aged man in a chef's apron raises his hand thoughtfully, a puzzled expression on his face. Resting his chin on his hand, a middle-aged man in an apron contemplates the admirable qualities of someone unexpected. Slumped over at the counter, a young man with messy black hair stares downward, lost in melancholic thought. The diner, now shrouded in shadows, reflects the despair of the young man as he lies face down on the table. The middle-aged man, his face resolute, raises his hand to silence the young man, demanding his attention. Tears stream down the young man's face, a look of utter anguish etched upon his features as he grapples with shocking news. Racked with grief and disbelief, the young man struggles to comprehend the devastating reality of his situation. The concerned middle-aged man watches as the young man, overcome with despair, hunches over the counter. A young man, his face etched with annoyance, glances at the hunter rankings, seemingly unimpressed. Clutching his head in agony, the young man winces, overwhelmed by a searing headache. A sudden sound jolts the young man, his eyes widening in alarm as he raises his hand to his face. On a city street, a surprised young man finds himself confronted by a stern, black-haired man and a white-haired woman. The black-haired man, a smug smirk playing on his lips, revels in his apparent control of the situation. Startled, the white-haired woman turns, her eyes widening in surprise as someone addresses her with a knowing tone. The white-haired woman recoils in horror, her eyes wide with shock, as a hand holding a vial of glowing blue liquid appears before her. The black-haired man hurls a purple bottle at the white-haired woman, his words laced with a dangerous mix of anger and self-satisfaction. Shards of glass, propelled by a burst of blue energy, fly towards the top of a dark red tower, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. A smug smirk graces the man's lips as he confronts the white-haired woman, her eyes reflecting her growing apprehension. The dark-haired man in the blue jacket claps a hand over his mouth, his face a mask of shock and disbelief. A man with white hair is sent flying backward, his body colliding with an unseen force. Terror grips the dark-haired man as he clutches his neck, his eyes wide with fear. Rage contorts the white-haired woman's face as an unseen assailant chokes her, her fingers digging into their hand. A disembodied voice, laced with menace, offers a chilling proposition: honesty in exchange for an antidote. Anxiety clouds the face of the dark-haired man as he stands frozen, a hand clamped over his mouth, facing a grave accusation. A lone woman with long, dark hair contemplates deeply, her back to the subtly designed wall. Suddenly, a woman with long white hair is being strangled, her blue eyes wide with terror as she grasps her assailant's arm. Despite achieving a high rank, he remains grounded, a refreshing sight for those weary of facades. The white-haired woman is now being choked, her head tilted painfully as she struggles against the pressure. The scene shifts abruptly to the blurred edge of a building shrouded in the mysterious darkness of night. Inside, amidst the flames, a blonde-haired character firmly grasps the arm of a brown-haired character. Nearby, a dark-haired figure in red sits serenely with closed eyes, engulfed in powerful flames, bidding farewell to Saintess Isabel. From the inferno, a brown-haired character emerges, staring in shock at the red-clad figure with their back turned against the brick wall. A man with brown hair and glowing orange eyes looks on in confusion, his face drenched in sweat. Amidst a raging inferno, a shadowy figure with outstretched arms, adorned in black and an earring, appears, radiating an aura of mystery. The man in the blue jacket stumbles backward, falling desperately as accusations of murderer and psychopath fill the air. He frantically runs, a green light emanating from his shoe, leaving behind shards of green light on the ground. A shocked face, a hand reaching out, and flames engulfing the bottom of the scene heighten the tension. The man in the blue jacket, still sweating, locks eyes with a long-haired man in black, a wall of flames blazing behind him. Against a stark purple background, a man with black hair, adorned with gold earrings and a confident smirk, savors the thrill of the hunt. Suddenly, a young man with short dark hair falls backward, his blue jacket a blur against the dark background, ambushed by an unseen assailant. High above the ground, a woman with long black hair and a white streak plummets from a tall building, the ground a distant blur. The falling man in the blue jacket is engulfed in flames as a hand reaches out, casting a fiery attack from the building above. The young man with messy dark hair reels in shock, the red background swirling around him as a chilling realization dawns. His shock morphs into a shout, the horrifying truth about the man falling from the building and the potential scale of his crimes washing over him. The young man in the blue jacket plummets towards the ground, one arm outstretched in a desperate attempt to brace himself. His green and white trainers hit the asphalt, the right one scuffed and dirty, a silent testament to the impact. Dazed and disoriented, the young man lies on the purple ground, his mind struggling to grasp what just happened. He groans, feeling a surge of despair as he realizes the extent of his injuries. A figure in black boots stands triumphantly over him, a glowing orange sword embedded in the checkered floor. The man on the ground cries out, his face contorted in pain as the weight of the situation crashes down on him. A woman with long black hair towers over him, her red top a stark contrast to his vulnerable position on the ground. TCH, shouldn't have run, she mutters as a small burst of fire erupts near her hand, leaving him pleading for his life. A man with a confident smirk and a long ponytail, dressed in red and black, appears, his golden eyes gleaming with amusement. Overwhelmed with fear, the young man on the ground cries out, desperately trying to convince them of his innocence. In the dimly lit alleyway, the shocked young man in the blue jacket cowers before a menacing figure wielding a flaming spear, a look of amusement dancing in his eyes. On top of calling me Flame Emperor, you just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and you didn't see anything? The man with the long black ponytail questions with suspicion. Damn, that's so convincing. He chuckles, choking the green-haired man, if I was even a bit of a fool, I would have believed you. If you don't want to become like the saintess, answer properly. He snarls, a wicked grin spreading across his face, revealing sharp teeth. The world. The man with the swept-back hair stammers, fear evident in his voice. The scene shifts abruptly to a computer screen displaying 3 men. One with short dark hair, another with a ponytail singing into a microphone, and a third in a suit and tie. The man with the sharp eyebrows and magenta jacket muses, his expression unreadable. You'd know that I'm really nothing. The young man with messy hair chokes out, a hand gripping his neck tightly. The man with the ponytail and crimson jacket stares in disbelief, his surprised expression betraying his shock. Newspaper clippings litter a surface, one featuring a woman with long, light hair, identified as the saintess, and a big donor. Without any certainty, you killed her? A voice asks from somewhere unseen. Just because she was a bit suspicious. A voice hisses, tightening its grip on the young man's neck as tears well up in his eyes. Hey, how dare you say such hurtful things? Who do I look like? The man with the swept-back hair roars, his face a mask of anger. Who? The young man cries out as a fist collides with his face, sending him reeling backward. Kook, he groans, fear etched on his face. How do you know that? He stammers. I have my ways. The man with the ponytail replies coolly, conjuring a spark of orange magic in his hand. Since you're bringing up the lie detection, I guess you really must be innocent. The man with the ponytail muses. Thank you. The green-haired man exclaims, overwhelmed with relief. Thank you for believing in me. However, a voice booms, a glowing orange hand appearing above the young man's head. You've already seen too much. The city burns, consumed by orange flames as the man with the ponytail smiles cruelly. So I need you to die. My name is Yu Su Ha. Farewell. The scene shifts abruptly to a cheerful memory, a young boy named Gong Ya beaming brightly as a hand rests on his shoulder. A young man in a blue jacket lies lifelessly on the floor, illuminated by a futuristic blue box that coldly announces, "You have died." Died va uoi. As glowing blue cards float on the edges of the frame, a message appears asking, "Why did I have to live like that?" and declaring, "The condition for your skill has been fulfilled by your death." A blue box with glowing cyan outlines appears, bringing a message of hope as it states, "Lived a bit better," and randomly copying Hunter Yu Su Ha's skills. Against a backdrop of stars, 3 cards lay face down as a 4th, shimmering card floats above them, while a message announces, "Creating skill cards," with a magical sound. 4 cards, each bearing a circular emblem, shimmer against a backdrop of streaking stars, anticipation building with a quiet emanating from them. The man, now with tears streaming down his face, lies down, overwhelmed by grief as the words, "Live a better life," echo above him. Cards fly towards a bright light, as a message within a blue box requests, "Please select a skill card," while a desperate plea whispers, "If I was given just one more chance." Golden. 2 hands reach out, one grasping desperately at a glowing golden object as the other strains to reach it, accompanied by the plea, "Just one more." White shapes blur against a black background, converging towards a bright light as if in a rapid transfer of data, with the messages, "Selection complete," and "Copying skill," appearing. A television set displays a blurred image of a studio, the words, "This is Babylon News, reporting live," barely visible above the screen. The Black Dragon Guild has set out to raid the 40th floor of the tower. Haven't they boasted that they will show the skills of a top guild this time? A young man lies peacefully on his bed, a laptop glowing softly beside him, seemingly unaware of the empty bottles and scattered clippings that surround him. He lays sprawled on his bed, surrounded by empty bottles and clippings plastered on the walls, a caption stating, "Unfortunately, they came back empty-handed again." The young man's face is frozen in astonishment, his mouth slightly agape as he utters, "What in the—" A man's face flickers on a screen, a caption below dramatically revealing, "Flame Emperor raided the boss by himself again." The young man sits with his back to the viewer, watching as the same man with the earring appears on a screen in his bedroom. Only the young man's hair is visible as he looks up in astonishment, stammering, "What is happening?" He sits up in bed, his eyes wide with shock and confusion. The man's eyes widen in disbelief as the words, "Return home," appear above him. His shocked expression deepens as his eyes dart between a news article about the Flame Emperor and a chat window filled with messages. A man in a red jacket glares at the camera, microphone in hand, angrily shouting, "Why are you calling me with such a dumbass nickname when I have a proper name?" As the label, Flame Emperor, hovers above him, the young man stares at his phone, blue light illuminating his surprised and flustered face. A man with slicked back brown hair and a mischievous grin leans towards the camera, whispering, "I." A hand reaches up towards a bright light as the caption, "Just a moment ago," appears above. He raises his hand defensively, a concerned look on his face as he clutches his phone, his earring glinting in the light. Two glowing panels hum with energy, the words, "Skill card, open," appearing between them. He turns towards a glowing rectangular panel, his right hand raised, phone still clutched in his left. A yellow text box with a white outline appears, displaying the intriguing message, "One is the most trash skill of the century." Above, "I want to become just like you." Rank, S+ effect, automatically activated when killed by an enemy. You copy one of the skills of the enemy that killed you and make it yours. His eyes widen in shock, a single bead of sweat rolling down his cheek as he stammers, "This is." His fingertips ghost over a bright yellow panel, whispering in disbelief, "No way. Is this the Flame Emperor's skill I copied when I died?" A white text box with a yellow outline details the skill, Returner's Winding Clock. Rank, X effect, activated automatically on death. You will return 24 hours back in time from the moment of your death. Your memories and experience points are preserved while returning. However, there is a greater penalty the higher your rank. His eyes widen, a mixture of shock and disbelief on his face as he stutters, "I automatically return to the day before my death." Newspaper clippings cascade down, a bold yellow and a blue return, superimposed on them, accompanied by the question, "While keeping my memories and experience points." Surrounded by intricate clockwork, he reaches out with one hand clutching a glowing yellow object in the other, murmuring, "The secret to becoming a legendary hunter was this." A man with a confident smirk and sharp eyes states, "I just do. I have my ways." As a caption reveals, it's because he was actually poisoned by the Saintess the next day. He clenches his fist, face contorted in a grimace as he cries out, "And even me, who was innocent." He stands with his back turned in his sparsely decorated kitchen, seemingly lost in contemplation. A man with slicked back hair speaks into a microphone, declaring, "In the end, those who are destined to succeed will succeed." While the young man below him retorts, "But even if you succeed, don't start beef with me." The man on the screen glares down, uttering a chilling, "You will die." As the young man below stares back defiantly. Head bowed, he stands alone, the word, "die," echoing around him. He turns his head, his face a mask of shock and anger, earring glinting in the light. A hand reaches out, fingers splayed, as a bright yellow glow, fragmented and electric, emanates from its center. He looks up in alarm, mouth agape, as the word, "fire," flashes above him, a building's corner framing the scene. He listens intently, a framed picture on the wall behind him, a subtle detail in the tense atmosphere. Through a barred window, a large fire rages, a hand reaching out towards it with a desperate. Gripping a wrapped sword, he charges forward, declaring, "Let's stop standing around and go put out the fire." A group of people rush towards the fire, a determined man with a fire extinguisher leading the charge, as a woman behind him shouts, "I agree." He pauses at a doorway, framed against a breathtaking twilight sky, a caption revealing, "This place where I live is different from the outside world." He stands with his back to the viewer, gripping a sheathed knife, silhouetted against a cityscape painted in hues of orange and red, as a caption explains, "A city built by people who entered the tower to become hunters." A fiery red sky dominates the scene, flames licking at the clouds, as the words, "Florai, tower," appear, stark against the inferno. A multi-story building is terribly engulfed in flames, the fire's intense heat reflecting in the windows of the surrounding buildings. A young man with a white hoodie frantically runs down a busy street, checking his phone while a concerned woman runs alongside him. Someone checks the time on their phone, 6:37 on Monday, the fiery cityscape reflected on the screen, a stark contrast to the teal background. A group of people bravely battle a massive fire, water spraying from hoses as they work together to control the blaze. A woman with striking purple hair listens intently as someone gives orders amidst the chaotic nighttime scene. The purple-haired woman, revealed to be the Black Witch, walks through a grand orange room, annoyed by the many names for the city. A green-haired woman, her face illuminated by the city lights, announces that the area is secure but survivors might still be trapped. The green-haired woman, revealed to be the head of the Healer Pharmacist Guild, looks on in shock, her glasses reflecting the city lights. A guard clad in silver, blue, and gold armor stares in disbelief, learning that the city is known as both Babylon and Floor City. The armored guard raises his hand, relieved to hear that the isolated location they've stumbled upon hasn't been accessed in 5 years. He adds that some even call the city of Ascension, but it's essentially the same. He describes it as a city you can't leave once you enter, the image showing a city overtaken by a raging inferno. On a city street, a young man in a white hoodie throws his arms out in panic as a massive fire rages behind him. Against a blue background, a young man with black hair wonders why the Saintess hasn't arrived yet, finding her tardiness unusual. Inside a building with yellow walls, a surprised-looking armored man recalls seeing the Saintess with the Flame Emperor, suspecting a date. The green-haired woman, arms crossed, declares that their profits will suffer if other hunters reach their target first. Against a purple background, the green-haired woman admits with a suspicious frown that she doesn't like the Flame Emperor. "Goddamn!" erupts from the group, the frustration evident in their expressions as they stand against a vibrant orange background. In a park, a man with long black hair smirks arrogantly, demanding to know who played with fire without his permission. The man in the red jacket walks purposefully down a busy city street, his face hidden as he blends into the crowd. The man in the gray hoodie tenses, a glimmer of seriousness in his eyes, as he whispers, "He arrived." Holding a tablet, the man with the long black hair grins, thanking the Flame Emperor for coming as the armored figure acknowledges his presence. A worried man with long black hair explains that a fire has started in the old slums, pleading for the Flame Emperor's help. The Flame Emperor, smirking confidently as he clenches his fist, questions what he'll gain from helping. Gripping a green cylinder tightly, a man in a striped shirt fumes over the Flame Emperor's audacity to ask for a reward for a fire he started. Annoyed, the man in the orange shirt dismisses the suggestion of gaining public goodwill by arguing that he doesn't care what others think. A nearby conversation reveals that while some find the Flame Emperor's personality off-putting, others admire his honesty. "I refuse to do charity work. See ya," the woman with long brown hair waves dismissively as she walks away. 3 phones held high capture the departing woman's image, their owners impressed by her refreshing authenticity. The man with the long black hair and red shirt smirks subtly, revealing that the public remains oblivious to his true nature. As the man with the ponytail walks away, a chilling thought appears. He's the only one who knows the Flame Emperor's true nature as a cold-blooded killer. The brown-haired man clenches his jaw, a dangerous glint in his eye, consumed by a single-minded objective. He needs to kill the Flame Emperor. The young man in the gray hoodie abruptly turns and walks away, leaving his surprised companions to question his sudden departure. It's dangerous to get close. A man in a blue cap desperately tries to stop the young man as a bright light emanates from his back. A powerful statement hangs in the air, a stark reminder of the stakes, for humanity, and for the honor of hunters. 2 men walk down a busy nighttime street, their figures swallowed by the darkness, their purpose shrouded in mystery. Tension crackles between the 2 men as the one in red states matter-of-factly, "Hunters are people who are supposed to hunt monsters." The words, regardless of the method, hang heavy in the air, a single foot stepping onto the red-tinged floor with determined force. The man with the red jacket appears troubled, lost in his thoughts, as someone urges him to get his head straight. On a street lit by the glow of streetlights, the man in the red jacket finds himself face to face with a mysterious figure. The man in the red jacket is confronted by the other man, who brandishes a teal weapon, their movements a blur of urgency. That monster deserves to be exterminated. A desperate cry rings out as panicked people flee a fiery inferno. "You're heading into the fire." The man with black hair reaches out as the other man stumbles backward, falling towards the flames below. A wave of heat washes over the onlookers, their faces contorted in shock and pain as they recoil from the intense temperature. Engulfed in flames, the man with short black hair appears to manipulate the fire, his expression a mix of pain and determination. The stark white letters against the vibrant blue box deliver a chilling message. You have died. A glimmer of hope emerges as a message appears. You will return 24 hours back to the past. A sudden shift in perspective is marked by a rush of black and white, signifying a dramatic transition. A young man with short gray hair lies unconscious, his body a blur against the streaks of motion, his fate uncertain. The young man remains unconscious as the scene is set for a news report, the voiceover announcing, "This is Babylon News, reporting live." The young man sits on the edge of his cluttered apartment bed, contemplating the Black Dragon Guild's raid on the 40th floor. He turns his head, still clad in his casual clothes, towards a faint grid-like pattern, a digital interface confirming his low rank as an F-rank hunter. A bright blue rectangle materializes, boldly proclaiming, "There is no penalty for the skill usage." Standing resolutely before a massive pocket watch, the man clenches his fists, realizing, killing the Flame Emperor as I am right now is impossible. The man with long dark gray hair falls backward, arms raised in defeat, thinking, even if I somehow get lucky and manage to kill him, he'll just go 24 hours back to the past. The man crouches in his kitchen, reaching into a cupboard, wondering, so the only way for a lowly hunter like me to hunt him? A photo of a man with slicked back dark gray hair and a serious expression rests against the wall. The question, "When was the first time you awakened?" displayed below. The blonde woman in the red suit sits opposite the man with long black hair during the interview. "It was the summer I was 21. So it's already been 11 years. Since you remember it so clearly, you must have a good memory," he replies. The man with slicked back dark gray hair takes a sip from his blue mug, a contemplative frown etched on his face as he mutters, "That's not necessarily it." The man in the black shirt sits, recounting, "So that was. It's just that the day I awakened happened to be my birthday." Holding his teal and silver sword, the young man calculates, 11 years ago, on June 7th. So if I calculate from today, that's 4,050 days. Two hands grip the teal object, the words, "by dying 4,050 times," echoing in the air. With a powerful downward swing, the gleaming sword cuts through the air. Against the swirling blue backdrop, the young man clasps his hands, determined, "I will return to the time before he awakened." Streaks of white and blue converge, signaling a dramatic shift perhaps through time and space. Black gives way to white as the stark message, "You have died," appears. The man in the white shirt lies down, his face sweaty and scared as he lets out a scream. Hours later, the man stands in an empty room, clutching his green-hilted sword, his face still damp with sweat. He faces forward, resolute, "Good, now. Only 4,049 days left." Two hands grip the sword with incredible force, swinging it with power and intensity against the white backdrop. A bright light shines above, fading into a black abyss below, a mysterious and ominous presence lurking within. The young man lies sprawled on the wooden floor, clutching a thin green object, the words, "You have died," 1 inch appearing above him. His face frozen in a silent scream, the young man is dragged down by a dark, swirling substance, a hand clutching a green sword emerging from the darkness as, "You have died." 1 inch flickers above. Blood trickles from the young man's lips as he cries out in pain, his life fading fast. Kneeling in the room plastered with news articles, the young man hangs his head, the weight of returning to 24 hours ago, heavy on his mind. He clutches his chest, gasping for air as a hand draws the sword, its reflection showing a young man with haunted eyes. 2020 days. There is no penalty for the skill usage. You have died. A green rectangle lies on the wooden floor as the world dissolves into a black void, a gasping face appearing within. You have died. 1 inch, 543 days. Finally. A manic grin spreads across the young man's sweaty face as he grips his gleaming sword, his wide eyes burning with unsettling excitement. Knees slamming against the white surface, the figure lands with a forceful thud. Bright yellow energy crackles around the hunched figure, striking him with violent force. Legs clad in dark pants stumble backward, bright yellow energy crackling around them as the message, "1 day left," hangs in the air. The clock on the wall ticks past 12:53, a sense of anticipation filling the air. The young man lies sprawled on the bed, a box cutter held loosely in his hand, his posture radiating exhaustion and resignation. A look of concern etched on his face, The young man peeks cautiously around the corner. Back turned to the empty room, the young man sits lost in contemplation as the clock on the wall quietly ticks past 10:50. Newspaper clippings featuring various faces are scattered across the surface. The words, "I did it," scrawled above. A hand grips the green-handled blade, fingers tense, poised to strike. The clock ticks past 12:51 as the thought, "I came back to a time before the legend of the Flame Emperor began," fills his mind. Leaning against the wall, the young man sighs heavily, his hand resting on his head, a picture of weariness and resignation. The young man sits slumped on the floor. "I died 30 times more than the originally planned 4,050. He thinks, that's including the time that it took to kill myself, as well. The man with the long black hair lets out a sinister smile, flames licking at his back. As taking breaks here and there, he muses, "I held on all that time to prove that the legend of that devil isn't eternal." Bare feet move across the wooden floor, a sense of calm pervading the air. Clutching a knife, the young man in the white hoodie hurries out the door, his back to the quiet home. He pulls up the hood of his light gray hoodie, his expression serious, concealing his identity from the world. Standing tall against the backdrop of the city, he thinks, "I am." He peers through the window panes, his gaze falling upon the unmoving figure lying on the bed, a sense of concern washing over him. A loud alarm jars the man with the long, dark hair awake, his phone flashing beside him, as a figure lurks outside the window. He mutters. The muscular man with long, dark hair rises from the bed, phone in hand, groaning, "My head hurts like hell." The man in the light-colored hoodie watches with a serious expression as the shirtless man beside him glances at his phone. "I shouldn't have drunk so much last night," he mumbles. Through the window panes, the man with the ponytail rushes forward, his face a mask of urgency, shouting, 10 times. Every day at 9 a.m., he woke up in the F-rank dormitory. He watched sadly as his roommate left for work, thinking, "Time to go to work, goddamn life." He catches slimes in the second-floor hunting ground. Holding up a slime, he sighed, "Damn, it's boring as hell catching slimes all day every day." He glared enviously at the other man, thinking, "Fucking hell. When will I get to live an awesome life like the Sword Saint?" The 21-year-old, gripping his sword tightly, is just an average F-rank hunter wishing for a golden ticket. "Could I win the lottery or something?" he yelled in frustration, "or at least get an S-rank skill." Normally, his wishes would come true a week later. Suddenly, he was struck by a blinding beam of red energy. A man in a white hooded jacket swung his glowing sword with intense power. "But that kind of future isn't coming to a guy like you anymore." A voice echoed as dread washed over him. He braced himself, arm instinctively covering his chest, a feeling of defeat settling in. Determined, he strode through the building. "Take me to floor 6. He declared. Yu Su-ha decides that he won't get anywhere just catching slimes, so he moves to a difficult higher area that beginner hunters seldom go to. Anticipation thrummed within him, moving to the floor 6 hunting grounds. He found himself in a circle of swirling light, alone, a place where, for the next 36 minutes, he'll be alone. A drop of blood fell from his shoe onto the grass. "Excuse me, Mr. Hunter," a voice called, snapping him out of his thoughts. He screamed, blood splattering across his white hoodie, fear gripping him. "I got attacked by wolves. Gee, give me a potion," he pleaded desperately, hands outstretched, covered in blood. Rage burned in the eyes of the man with the slicked back ponytail. "That means there's no point in hunting here today," he spat, watching the wounded man plead. "Please. A potion. What goddamn potion? I won't even get to fulfill my daily quota." "How much will you give me?" he asked, surprised by the desperate plea. "Pardon?" Impaled and bleeding, he choked out, "How much will you give me for the potion? To a stranger I just met? Don't you have morals?" He scoffed, "My hunt's been ruined, yet I need to give this expensive potion for free? It's sold at the Alchemy Castle, for 20 gold, he explained, holding up the potion. "I'll give you 2 to 20 gold, so please," the injured man begged. "You don't seem to understand the situation here," he growled, pushing the injured man back with his arm. A look of realization dawned on his bloodied face as a strange light engulfed him. He clutched his wound. "You're on death's door. yet you only want to pay 20 gold? Is your life only worth 20 gold? Then 4 to 40 gold. The injured man stammered, nah. He smirked, leaning back. He grinned menacingly, grabbing the injured man. Just give me all you've got. I'd known already. Oh, right, you want to give it to me, but you can't even use your hands. He chuckled, taking the blue wallet. Don't worry. I'll take it for you. He shoved the injured man back, thinking darkly, let's see. That he was this kind of a person. 1, 2, 3. He counted the coins, roughly 60 gold. He scoffed, dang, dude. Why are you so poor? Carry around more money. That's my entire savings. He stammered, eyes wide with shock as a hand clamped down on his head. Don't worry, he said with a confident grin, I'll spend it well. Isn't that how life works? He remarked, closing his eyes with a self-satisfied smile. Then, the potion. The injured man began, only to be met with an amused glance. He gripped the glowing purple javelin, its aura crackling with power. But if I let you go, you might come after me for revenge later. He said, eyeing the injured man nervously. I need to be able to live without worries. The injured man muttered, staring at his hand, but since you've seen my face. Worries? He snarled, a purple aura engulfing his outstretched hand. Why don't you go ahead and die? Okay, she said, launching a swift attack with her purple staff as the man desperately dodged. The two men clashed, their struggle erupting in a blinding explosion of purple energy. I'll live without worries, he roared, racing through the air, fists clenched. Fucking hell. He gasped, clutching his stomach, his weapon falling from his grasp. He sprinted across the grassy field, his bloodied hand gripping a glowing green sword, a look of grim determination on his face. Their blades clashed and sparked, a whirlwind of red and blue energy filling the air. He twisted and dodged, barely avoiding the attacks that seemed to come from all sides. His vision blurred, his single yellow eye burning. Gasp. Gasp. He breathed heavily, clutching his bloodied sword, shock and exertion etched on his face. He sprinted through the forest, clothes drenched in blood, his determined face illuminated by the warm sunlight filtering through the trees. His hands, a blur, tightened around the emerald blade as he prepared for a final, desperate attack. Silhouetted against the dying light, he raised his sword high above his head, ready to strike. Blood stained the grass around his feet as he caught his breath. Phew, Yu-Su-Ha, he murmured. He walked away under the bright orange sky, his shoulders slumped with grief. Having killed me is whatever, he thought bitterly. He stood over the man in the red shirt, his face grim, the knife poised to deliver the final blow. But there was something weird that bothered me, the man on the ground choked out. The man with the earring leaned forward, his expression serious. Why you told me your name at that moment? My name is Yu-Su-Ha. Farewell, he stated coldly. You bastard. He spat, his face a mask of rage and resentment, fresh scratches marking his skin. He slammed his blood-soaked foot down on the wooden staff, his fury radiating outwards. How fucking dare you? She screamed, her face a mix of defiance and terror as she faced the man with the earring, his eyes blazing with fury. He stood silently in the building, rain lashing against the windows, his face a mask of contemplation. Acting righteous after killing all those innocent people, he roared, his face contorted in anguish, a single bead of sweat tracing a path down his cheek. Step by step, he walked away down the dirt road, the setting sun casting long shadows as he left the forest behind. He stood on the forest path, the last rays of the setting sun catching the sheathed sword at his side as two sets of glowing eyes materialized in the gathering darkness. Surrounded by slavering wolves with glowing eyes, he could only wait in terror for the inevitable attack. You guys want to eat him, right? A voice echoed through the trees. I don't need him, go for it. A voice cried, and he urged himself onward, his breath catching in his throat as he fled through the forest, a monstrous red figure close behind. He stood his ground, a fierce light in his eyes, as the pack of red dogs charged toward him, leaving a trail of red in their wake. He stared down at the ground, his face pale with fear, the setting sun painting the forest in hues of orange and purple. His bloodied hand clawed at the dirt, leaving a gruesome trail as he dragged himself forward, desperate to escape. A black jacket and two discarded water bottles lay at the bottom of a shallow pit, a testament to a hasty escape. He stumbled through the forest, his white shirt stained crimson, a gasp escaping his lips as pain lanced through his body. A blood-soaked hoodie lay crumpled at the bottom of the shallow grave, a silent testament to the struggle that had transpired. With practiced movements, he zipped up his black jacket, his expression calm and collected as he prepared himself for what lay ahead. To floor 1, he breathed, his eyes wide with surprise as he emerged into the dense, unfamiliar forest. Moving to floor 1, city, he announced, the grand hall around him bathed in the ethereal glow of the teleportation beam. He hurried down the narrow alleyway, a sense of unease settling upon him as the silver-clad figure with the spear followed behind. "It's the Vigilante Corps," he muttered under his breath. He stood tall, his expression hardening as he met the imposing gaze of the armored guard. A moment later, the tension remained, but surprise flickered across his face as the situation took an unexpected turn. He watched in disbelief as the guard, his armor gleaming under the hallway lights, let out a wide, jaw-cracking yawn. "Oh," he murmured, glancing up at the serene beauty of the city skyline as the sun painted the sky in vibrant hues of pink and orange. "It's over," he stated flatly, his footsteps echoing down the empty hallway as he walked away, leaving the armored guard behind. "No one knows what happened," echoed through the city streets as twilight descended, casting long shadows across the sprawling cityscape. "The Floor 10 raid team was met with another defeat today," announced the blank digital billboard, a stark contrast to the vibrant lights of the bustling cityscape. "Criticism of the Sword Saint is growing," a gruff voice stated as a drink thudded onto the wooden surface of the bar. "For his refusal to participate in the raid despite being rank 1. He spat, slamming his hand down on the bar, his knuckles white against the glass. "The terrible legend of Flame Emperor, Yu Su-ha is no more," a voice announced, and he threw his head back and laughed, his eyes closed in pure joy. "Manager, can I get another pint of beer?" he shouted, unable to contain his delight as he gestured towards his empty glass. "Aren't you drinking quite a lot?" the man in the white shirt remarked, a smile tugging at his lips. "Your hunt must have gone well today." Yes, it went well," he responded cheerfully, balancing 2 plates in his hands as he weaved through the crowded bar. "It went super well." He threw back his head and laughed, raising his glass of beer in a toast. "There are even some calling it a useless ranking system," he chuckled. "Open hunter status window," he commanded, a confident smirk playing on his lips as he gestured with his free hand, the bar noise fading into the background. He tapped the display screen, his eyes scanning the information displayed within the window. Name, Kim Gong-ya. Rank, F. Skills 2/4. 1. I want to become just like US+. Passive, 2. Returner's winding clock X. Passive, 3. None. 4. None. "Ah, it tastes so sweet," he sighed contentedly, taking another sip of his drink. "Just looking at these precious skills." He mused, his gaze drifting towards something off-screen. He stared down at his drink, a troubled expression on his face. "Is this what they call human greed?" he wondered aloud, a wave of conflicting emotions washing over him. "Let's just think about what's possible with the skills I've got," he declared. He gazed at the overflowing treasure chest, his mind racing with possibilities. "I could win the Merchant Guild Sang Ryan's lottery," he mused. "Or I could sell the clearing method for the upper floors that no one knows yet." He thought aloud, excitement bubbling up inside him. "Dang, things are finally looking good for me." He leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Now what should I do from here on out?" he wondered, the weight of his newfound opportunities settling upon him. The bar, bustling with activity, fell silent as the imposing figure in the doorway paused, his piercing gaze sweeping across the room. "Milk," he stated simply, his red sneakers a stark contrast to the elegance of his suit as he stood in the doorway, drawing the attention of those around him. "Please, just mix a little bit of vodka and sugar with warm milk," he requested, his blue eyes holding a hint of sadness. He casually taps his bright red sneakers on the floor. The young man at the counter stammers, bewildered, "I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not a bartender." He nervously glances over his shoulder, whispering, "Hey, that guy, is it really him? Why is he here?" The older man calmly places his hat on his head as the younger man watches intently. The older man's stern face flickers on the screen as he announces gravely, "There is a lot of public opinion that we need to cooperate." His eyes widen in alarm, his face etched with sudden fear. The old man's face, weathered and wise, remains deep in thought. He asks quietly, his gaze distant, "So where is the Sword Saint, and what is he doing?" The headline reads, "Sword Saint, whose real name is Marcus Callenbury." Above a shadowed figure against the cityscape. The man's image fades as the caption below reads, 22 days since the disappearance of the Sword Saint. Is this the occurrence of the worst chaos in the hunter industry? A lot of people have forgotten him 11 years later, as it's been a long time since his disappearance. The ornate border frames the statement, but until the Flame Emperor rose to fame, he was the true number one of the tower. He adjusts his tie thoughtfully, murmuring, "That guy would be the strongest in this time." He takes a sip of his beer, contemplating, not some weird skill like mine, but proper combat ones. Bold yellow text proclaims, "I want to become just like you, rank S+ effect. Automatically activated when killed by an enemy. You copy one of the skills of the enemy that killed you and make it yours. You may not copy from an opponent you've already copied from. The copied skill is selected randomly. However, you will die." Large, bold letters ask, "This skill, will it let me copy a skill from any hunter as long as I die to them?" He ponders, even the skills of the current rank 1? Golden gears whir behind them as they stand frozen in the white void, bound by heavy chains. He stares down at the giant watch face. "And now, I can't even die." He clutches his phone, a determined glint in his eyes. This seems quite doable, doesn't it? He sits alone, his back to the viewer, while in the bustling bar nearby, whispers arise. Anonymous 6 months ago. It seems no one really knows what skills he has. And anonymous 1 year ago. Apparently, even though he had all the fortune and connections one could ever want, he abandoned it all to come to the tower. He stares at his phone, eyes widening as he reads, "What? Anonymous 2 months ago. I heard that he was the head of a rich north. Anonymous 6 months ago. Seems no one really knows what skills he has. Anonymous 1 year ago. Apparently, even though he had all the fortune and connections one could ever want, he abandoned it all to come to the tower." He scrolls through more messages, eyebrows furrowed. This guy, he's completely shrouded in mystery. There is no useful information, they're all rumors. The man in the red jacket conjures a small flame in his hand, smirking, "Best hunter." As the other mutters, it would have been great if he was even half the attention whore that Flame Emperor was. The man in the suit snarls, "Shut up. Don't be so loud," as the other scrambles back, fear flashing across his face. He levels a cool gaze, the other man sighing behind him, "That spooked me." The white-haired man leans back. Understand his feelings? He reads his phone with a scoff, muttering, "At least the rumors about him talking to himself are true. Does there always have to be something wrong with the rank 1? Eyes widening in horror, he reads from his phone, "Caution. A word that should never be spoken in front of the Sword Saint 8 months ago." The muscular man grins, leaning towards the white-haired man. "This is a 100% true story that I witnessed with my own eyes. If you don't want to die, never say this to the Sword Saint." "Hey, old man, this is a communal hunting ground. Let's follow the rules, okay?" The muscular man presses on, undeterred. "Can't you see that we've already claimed this spot as ours? A few days ago, some high rankers picked a fight with the Sword Saint on the floor 9 hunting grounds." The white-haired man frowns slightly. "That's odd. I never heard about such a thing." The muscular man throws back his head and roars with laughter, "Huh. Either it's time for you to get some new hearing aids, or you didn't hear it because you're so full of yourself." The old man's face crinkles with concern as a storm rages atop a distant mountain peak. The older man attacks with a flash of blue energy, forcing the younger man to raise his own sword defensively. "You're saying the Sword Saint committed murder?" The bald man throws up his hands, frustration edging his voice. "Think what you will. I just wanted to share it, since I thought you guys should know about it as well." He reads intently, the message clear. "Anyways, if you don't want to die, don't talk about his grandchildren in front of the Sword Saint." The phone displays a forum post, a gray cat as the profile picture. Announcements, something I should never say in front of him. The old man slams his hand down. "Silence. I'll take care of it, so leave it alone." He sits back in his chair, his vodka untouched, muttering to himself, "I can't drink my vodka because of you. I need to test this out." 3 gold coins hit the table with a resounding clang. "Thank you, owner, it was a good drink." The older man exits the bar, a cheerful voice calling after him, "Yes, yes. Have a nice day." He sits at the table, back turned, deep in conversation with the woman beside him as another woman stands nearby, observing the scene. One man walks away as the others stare after him, bewildered. Does he have Alzheimer's? Why was he mumbling so much? Damn, that was such a mood killer. The man in the black jacket lays down a coin, grinning. "Ah, thank you very much. Come again." He walks alone down the empty street, bathed in the pale glow of the streetlights. They fan out across the sidewalk, eyes scanning the crowds. Where did he go? They hurry down the street, eyes darting around. I followed him out right away, so he couldn't have gone that far. They round a corner, one of them calling out, "Found him." The old man in the blue suit approaches, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. He walks away, his back to the viewer, leaving the others to wonder. I wonder what skills he has. The Flame Emperor had an X-rank returner skill, so what will the Sword Saint, who'd succeeded even before the Flame Emperor, have? Returning. The man thinks to himself that skill is about to be his, he just needs a bit of luck. Red shoes meet the grass as someone mutters that this place should be adequate. Underneath a large crescent moon, a man calls out into the night. In the dark forest, he faces an older man in a blue suit, clutching a black sword. The man in the black and white jacket hides nervously behind a tree, certain no one will know what happened out here. He leans against a tree, speaking in hushed tones to the older man. The older man smirks, and the younger one, wearing a gray jacket, sighs an annoyed, "Hey." The man with the blue hat narrows his eyes suspiciously. He questions why he is being asked for a favor in such a scary manner. "Huh?" The young man questions, his shocked face quickly morphing into one of concern. "And I'm not particularly armed or anything," he adds nervously. "But he's holding a sword, as if he's about to attack me," the young man thinks as a hand gripping a silver sword comes into view. "Pardon?" He breathes out, eyes wide with alarm as an orange streak whizzes past him. "How? An F rank like me?" The young man's thoughts race. "Congrats, Kim Gong-ya. You can die without insulting his grand." I'm sorry, but I don't quite follow." He stammers, hastily retreating from the strange scene. "How shrewd," the older man observes, a stern look on his face, acting even now. "But you can't fool my eyes." Please, Gramps." The young man calls out, glancing back as he runs through the dense forest. "I'm asking because I really don't know," the older man replies, clutching his sword as the other flees. "How do I look like a first-class assassin?" The older man exclaims, "I'm actually quite proud of how normal I look." A man, his face obscured by an ornate sword, readies himself. "Shut your mouth," the man with the sword commands. "I possess many skills." A voice cuts through the white void, among them is. The man in the gray jacket doesn't react to the red splatters on the ground behind him and the hooded figure. "I might know that the person I killed would have become a monster." A voice speaks through the stark white, "But it's true that I don't have an excuse to give the people of this time period." The man in the black and white jacket stands silently, dread settling in his stomach as the weight of the situation sinks in. "As much as it sounds like I'm making excuses, please hear me out," he pleads. "I committed such an act with good reason." Panic lending speed to his feet, he runs through the forest, desperate to be heard. The older man watches him go, a sad and defeated expression settling on his face. He raises his sword, a determined glint in his eyes. "I can swear to the heavens." The younger man's cry is cut short, rage and hatred swirling in his eyes. The older man glares, his presence radiating power as he prepares to accuse. He raises his sword, silver glinting menacingly, as someone tries to reason with him. The bright silver sword cuts through the air, leaving a trail of light against the red blur. "But I at least haven't committed senseless mass murder like you," the younger man shouts. "In my entire life, the only one he begins, and he crumples to the ground. "You keep lying without any shame," the older man states coldly, sword still raised as he towers over the collapsed figure. "For the number of people you have murdered till now, A voice rings out as the number 4091 blazes above a red skull and crossbones. I can clearly see the number 4091 on top of your head. The older man declares, his fist clenched as he stares down at the younger. I killed Yu Su-ha once. The figure states, sword dripping against the bloody background. I killed myself 4090 times to get to the past. The young man says, his gaze unwavering, his scarred face a testament to his words. The older man walks away, his blue suit a stark contrast against the darkening woods. He stops, hand resting on his sword. Did the Witch of the Black Dragon send you? He questions, not turning to face the younger man. Killed 4091 people. The younger man yells, charging forward as a red blur whizzes past him. Then as long as the sword saint has that skill, he mutters, fear lending speed to his escape. No matter when he encounters me, the sword saint will try and kill me. The older man roars, swinging his glowing sword against the night sky. I will kill you with my all. The younger man screams, blue eyes burning with determination as he races toward the older. You devil! A voice booms as a white-hot explosion fills the space between them. 3 white streaks cut through the black, the raw energy radiating outwards. A figure, wreathed in blue light, reacts to an unseen attack, red lines marking the point of impact. The younger man narrowly avoids the older's sword strike. You could dodge my blade? As expected of a first-class assassin, the older man exclaims, a hint of respect in his voice. He lies sprawled on the ground, yelling furiously, this deaf fucking geezer. Suddenly, a powerful kick, a blur of motion, cuts through the air. He takes a surprised step back, uttering, wah. An anguished cry of, pierces the air as a red and white blur streaks across the sky. The man cries out in pain, arg, as he is knocked backwards. The man lies unconscious on the grass, his thoughts fading. I can't. The first time was pure luck. The older man raises his sword above his head, as the younger man on the ground thinks desperately, I can't dodge it another time. His face, slick with sweat, is a picture of intense concentration as he growls, shut up. He lies on the ground, looking up at the older man with a questioning. The older man, face contorted in rage, shouts, stop interfering with everything I do. The younger man turns away from the older man who continues to yell. It seems too much like a conversation to be schizophrenia. Is that a part of his skill? He stares in disbelief, sweat beading on his brow. No way. Telepathy? The older man exclaims in astonishment, I've heard rumors that skills like that exist. He stands rigidly, his fist clenched, his expression troubled. His face falls as he sees the number, 4091, below a chilling red skull and crossbones symbol. The seated man continues, that there's a murderer who killed 4091 people here. He stares at the wanted poster, his face a mask of fear as he thinks, and I'll be hunted down by big guilds and high-ranked bounty hunters. Until I'm publicly executed on floor 1 of the tower. He thinks, imagining the noose swaying ominously before a large, silent crowd. Blood trickles from his mouth as a surge of determination washes over him. I can't have that happen. His thoughts race against the backdrop of the night sky. I need to die right now. Before 24 hours pass. He hunches over defensively, sword gripped tight, facing the older man who roars, old man. The young man turns away, his expression resolute, even if you are my teacher, don't bother. I've already made up my mind. The older man's single blue eye stares intensely as he asks, are your grandkids doing well? The younger man walks through the darkened forest, his unease growing, thinking, I heard you're from a nice family in North Europe. You know how things are with those kinds of families. His face etched with worry, the blue-haired man asks, if people find out their grandpa is the sword saint, what do you think will happen? The older man hangs in the air, a blue light emanating from his hand, his expression unreadable. The gray-jacketed man plunges headfirst through the night sky, his eyes wide with shock. 3 figures stand silhouetted against the night sky, their faces hidden. 2 figures tumble through the air, the older man letting out a soft sigh, A single blue eye, reflecting the crescent moon, stares upwards in wonder, beautiful. He stares at the empty space, awestruck. I couldn't even see his last strike. How can I get to that level? He hangs upside down, his eyes shining with admiration. I want to be like him. He dashes through the forest, consumed by envy. I'm envious. The old man grips his sword. I also. He walks away, oblivious to the large hand reaching towards him. The blackness seems to pulse with longing, want to have that strike. The blue screen flashes, the words stark and final, you have died. The condition for your skill has been fulfilled by your death. He stands in the dimly lit room, the blue lines casting an ethereal glow on his determined face. 3 cards materialize in the air, gleaming silver, bronze, and a tantalizing unknown, as he whispers, finally. Bathed in orange light, he stands on the precipice of change, the blue display screen announcing, creating skill cards. His eyes widen as cards swirl around him, and he exclaims, rank hunters. Please select a skill card. He strides forward, blue energy crackling around him. All right, where's that golden card? He points at a card, a confident smirk on his face. I'll just pick one like I did with the Flame Emperor. His eyes widen in alarm, his thoughts coming out as a soft. He stands, back still turned, a sense of unease radiating from him. He stares upwards, his eyebrows shooting up in surprise. Chapter 06. Wait. His jaw drops as he stares at the copper card, his eyes wide with disbelief. The dark-haired man smirks. Are you telling me? Unlike the Flame Emperor, the legend of the Sword Saint Marcus Allenbury, the silver-haired man stares intently at the cards. Was achieved without a single S-rank skill? A figure plummets through the blue void, a single word escaping their lips. No way. The young man in the suit wonders. There has to be something overpowered in one of these silver cards. He desperately pleads, there has to be, as he reaches out. 3 brown cards with a faint blue glow fly through the air. 3 shit-colored cards. He sweats as 4 silver cards with a faint blue glow fly through the air. And 4 silver cards. Several cards, mostly blurry, fly through the air in front of a blue background. Ignoring the shitty ones. Crouching low to the ground, he prepares for his next move. Suddenly, he is attacked by something incredibly fast in a green forest. My chances are 1 out of 4. He thinks frantically. That kill count skill is probably among these 2. He throws his hand out, a blue light emitting from it. I don't want that. Give me a cheat. Clutching a card, he charges forward with lightning speed. Come on, I'll never ask for anything ever again. He crouches back down, examining the card in his hand. The skill behind the Sword Saint's success. A message appears, selection complete. Copying skill. You will return 24 hours back to the past. A clock face materializes, the numbers 11, 12, and 1 glowing as white lines stream downwards. He wakes up suddenly, his eyes wide with shock. He stares blankly, exhausted, and mutters, open hunter status window. Eyes wide with disbelief, he asks, did I get it? Sword Saint's main skill. A list appears displaying his skills. 2. Returner's Winding Clock X, passive 3. Sword Thrown A+, passive 4. None. Disappointed, he sighs, well, at least it's A+. It doesn't seem like the kill count skill either. He relaxes back into the bed, grumbling to himself. Man, I wanted a cool active like a rare martial arts skill or aura awakening. He sits up, a thought occurring to him. Well, I guess I shouldn't complain about an A+ skill. Skill card, open. The skill card appears before him displaying, Sword Thrown A+. He ponders, I can't tell what it does just from the name. Suddenly, he hears a loud noise and sits up, confused. What's with all this noise? A close-up of a shocked face appears. A voice calls out, Gramps, I've told you this before. Go outside if you want to train in the middle of the night. The man with bandages on his arm raises his hand, demanding, let's be a little more respectful. He collapses as a woman with long, red hair rushes to his side. His eyes widen in shock. Huh? Go outside if you want to train in the middle of the night. The voice continues, Gramps, as your master, I've told you this before. The bandaged man slams his hand down on the desk. Let's have some basic manners. He growls. The red-haired woman frantically checks on the unconscious man. The young man's eyes open. I'll be pulled to you if you go far away enough. A voice says above him. He sits up in surprise. I've told you there's no need to wake me up. Excuse me. A man with vibrant red hair glares down. Who are you? He stares back at the red-haired man, fear creeping into his eyes. And you can hear me? The red-haired man asks, startled. I'd assume so, since we're having a conversation. He replies from the bed. What? The young man asks, bewildered. The red-haired man runs a hand through his hair. Weird, that's not supposed to happen. The red-haired man looks around the room in confusion. Where the hell am I? Why is it so small here? Where the hell is Marcus? The young man raises an eyebrow, concerned. He looks down at the red-haired man, a realization dawning on him. Marcus. Callenbury? Oh, are you talking about the Sword Saint? The red-haired man scoffs. Yeah, that title is too much for a beginner like him, though. Tisk. But yeah, I'm talking about the grandpa that goes by that name. Where is he? He should be around here somewhere. The young man explains. He suddenly freezes, eyes widening in horror. A shadowy figure throws their hands up in frustration. The Sword Saint is a beginner? I can't see anything out of this small-ass window. What? They both breathe as the red-haired man reaches the window. A bright yellow display shows the words, Sword Throne. Rank. A plus effect. From another world. He cleared his world's tower up to floor 99 but failed on the 100th. Unsatisfied, he was unable to give up on his earthly desires and has become a spirit. He cannot physically affect anything in this world, but is able to communicate with the holder of this skill. Be awestruck by his skill and experience, and ask him for advice. He stares at the display, stunned. From another world, and he's a ghost? Excuse me, but were you the Sword Saint's guardian spirit? He asks, turning to the red-haired man. The red-haired man shrugs. I guess. He walks with the red-haired man through a rocky landscape. I'm sorry, but I think I accidentally. The young man stares up at him, his face pale. Cloned you. The red-haired man's jaw drops in shock. Return me to Gramps right now, he shouts. Below, the bustling cityscape sprawls out before them. The red-haired woman angrily argues that everything should be refundable nowadays. The long-haired man, visibly distressed, cries out in despair. He desperately reminds her that it's beyond his control. Panicked and drenched in sweat, the man with short dark hair gapes in response. The scene abruptly shifts to a dark and ominous setting where a man in light robes is informed that his master has been kidnapped. He nervously pleads with the upside-down, crying man to stop as they hang in a room with dark gray walls. Later, at home, the short-haired man expresses his frustration about the situation, recounting his demand for respect. Distressed and on the verge of tears, he laments that he's already dead in response to a suggestion to live quietly. Someone, enraged, calls for attention and accuses a disrespectful person of bad-mouthing the dead. Sitting cross-legged on the wooden floor, the muscular man with spiky red hair, dressed in a martial arts uniform, points angrily with tears streaming down his face. An older man in a black suit walks away, surprised by the ghost's chattiness, silencing further commentary. In a display of dominance, an older man with a long white beard yells at someone to shut up and stop interfering. The man with black hair stands with his arms crossed, deep in thought, letting out a thoughtful, "Ah." Frustrated, the red-haired man complains about hiding from the Sword Saint and being stuck with a useless skill. Confused, the man in black questions why he would hide from his seemingly nice grandfather. Covering his face with his hands, the distressed man in the kitchen acknowledges the warning about the grandfather's grandkids. Lost in thought, the red-haired man listens as someone explains the Sword Saint's skill of seeing kill counts. The man in black confidently points to his head, revealing the number 4091. The scene shifts to a blurred red and blue background, focusing on a circular shape with the number 4091. Against a dark blue background with abstract red designs, a muscular man with red hair, dressed in white, stands with his arms crossed, exuding an aura of strength. Stunned, the red-haired man exclaims in disbelief, questioning the sanity behind the revelation. Standing in a dark room, the red-haired man is criticized for being an amateur who doesn't know how to use his aura. Sitting sullenly on the bed, the man in the black turtleneck is questioned by the red-haired woman about the plausibility of his kill count. He resolutely justifies his actions, revealing that he only killed one person, a future tyrant. Against a pale blue-gray background, a man's outstretched hand symbolizes countless sacrifices, explaining he killed himself 4,090 times to return from the future to kill the tyrant. The narration reveals he gained the ability to copy a random skill from those who kill him and received the returner skill from the future tyrant. The red-haired man calmly explains that upon death, he's transported 24 hours back in time. A woman with long brown hair, standing before a burning city, explains her immortality and her goal of seeking revenge against the seemingly invincible Rank 1. A young man with glasses hangs upside down against a giant pocket watch, revealing his plan to travel back in time to before his target acquired their revival skill. The focus returns to the red-haired man, who contemplates the gravity of the situation, questioning if his companion truly turned back time for personal vengeance. The man with short dark hair stands in the kitchen, troubled by the conversation, lost in thought. Sitting on the bed, the gravity of the situation weighs on him as he questions if the 11 years of suicide were the price for this power. In a sparsely furnished room, the young man hangs his head low as the older man in a martial arts uniform observes with a serious expression. Tension fills the air as the red-haired man leans closer to the young man, demanding to know the identity of the person he seeks revenge against. Against a blue and yellow background, the young man is interrupted by a pointed finger, prompting a question about his choice of target. The young man's face contorts in shock and confusion as he grapples with the question. A hand presses firmly against his chest, emphasizing the answer. The target was the strongest, and their skills were the fastest path to power. A conversation unfolds against a muted green background, suggesting that the skill card prevents others from sensing the speaker's presence. The young man, leaning back thoughtfully, confirms that it's impossible for him to tell anyone else. In a simple room, the young man freezes mid-motion as the red-haired man in a martial arts uniform confidently commands him to stand up. The red-haired man, muscles taut, declares the young man has enough perseverance for physical training. Flanked by the imposing figures in white, the young man listens as the red-haired man acknowledges his ambition. Leaning against a tiled wall, the red-haired man, nursing his neck, admits that the experience wasn't so bad. He then turns towards the dark-haired man, angrily calling out to him. Under the light of a full moon, a voice calls out, challenging someone to hunt monsters in the forest. The scene shifts to a misty forest floor, illuminated by the moon, with strange red plants scattered around. Standing among the strange plants, the dark-haired man questions if he only needs to kill a few. He stands in the forest, knife in hand, ready to face the task at hand. A teal-blue energy beam cuts through the air, leaving a trail of red in its wake. As the young man watches, a large red plant is sliced by the energy beam. He backs away quickly, streaks of red still hanging in the air. Suddenly, a thick red substance explodes outwards, engulfing a nearby figure. Red bubbles float around him, his face a mask of grim determination. A hand, clutching a green hilt, tightens its grip as blood splatters around it. The gleaming blade slices through the air, leaving a trail of red in its wake. A whirlwind of red explodes against a backdrop of green, the violence of the unseen action echoing through the air. He attacks with a sweeping blow, his blade a blur as it cuts through the air, leaving a trail of red. "Yep," he mutters, his gaze unwavering and intense. Standing in the eerie moonlight, he raises his fist, red streaks swirling around him. "I knew it." He stands silently, back turned, a green-hilted knife clutched in his hand, a pool of red staining the ground beneath his feet. Blood splatters his face, his eyes widen in shock. "Knew what?" A majestic pagoda rises against the skyline. "Back when I was alive, I was known as the Sword Emperor." He gestures towards the sprawling cityscape. "I was born in a different world." Under the dim glow of a streetlight, he states, "The Flame Emperor became a legend after clearing floor 40. He throws his hands up in disbelief. "It said that he cleared floor 99. That's crazy." He speaks with a serious expression, his red hair almost glowing in the moonlight filtering through the trees. The muscular man with a bandaged hand replies, "The talent for becoming a hunter. That's why I wanted to see you hunt. Because I have no talent for fighting," he says quietly, staring at the moonlit forest floor. He stands tall, sword gleaming, while the red-haired man watches him intently from the ground. The red-haired man's eyes widen in disbelief, his mouth opening in protest. He raises an eyebrow skeptically, "An immense one, in fact?" You're just making fun of me, aren't you? He asks, glancing at the red-haired man beside him. The man in the suit states coldly, of course, you have no talent for martial arts. Your moves are too clumsy, your body isn't trained, and you don't even seem close to sensing your aura. He soars through the air, a splash of red behind him, but you have a talent that no one else has. You're not afraid of death. The red-haired man observes him, arms crossed. Normally, people instinctively protect themselves when they fight. But surprisingly, you don't have that instinct at all. It probably disappeared while you were dying more than 4,000 times. A voice says. He frowns. Does that even count as a talent? The blonde-haired woman stands with her sword drawn. Talent isn't something you have to be born with. Anyone can gain a talent at any time in their lives. The bones form a macabre display as the white-haired man adds, and one of the hardest to get is transcending the fear of death. He stares in awe at something unseen, whispering, it's incredible. A hand reaches out towards his chest, the forest looming around them. He looks down, his expression heavy, not even myself. He touches a gash on his cheek. I just couldn't stand being treated like a bug by the Flame Emperor. He lunges forward, a wild grin on his face as he brandishes the knife. He continues, I couldn't stand it, to the point where I killed myself 4,000 times. Streaks of energy surround him, that death became my talent. The red-haired man fixes him with a serious look. Let me ask you one thing. You died to Gramps, right? What were you thinking back then? He closes his eyes, his face unreadable. Blue streaks of light fall through the trees, illuminating the dark forest. I thought it was beautiful. The red-haired man soars through the air, his white uniform a stark contrast to the forest around him. He's thrown backwards, his body tumbling through the air in a blur of motion. The red-haired man throws his head back and laughs. Interesting, very interesting. Good. One of the red-haired men asks, you said your ability is to copy, and not steal, right? They stare at the imposing figure before them as the older man says, then Marcus still has another me as his guardian spirit. A hand reaches for the small blue flower. I want to see which one of you will become a greater hunter. The red-haired man grins mischievously, his sharp eyes gleaming under the moonlight. He places a hand on his chest, his expression sincere, I'll help you. An unseen voice cuts through the silence, to a point where you can stand toe-to-toe with Gramps. No, to a point where you can reign on top of him. He smirks, the crescent moon casting a faint light on his face. Let's take over this tower. He whispers. No. He cries out in anguish, his hands flying to his face. A young man with dark hair is laying peacefully in bed, thinking 5 more minutes. 5 minutes? You're slacking off. A voice scolds him. That old man Marcus might be clearing the 10th floor as we speak, and you want 5 minutes? You're slacking off. He covers his head with his pillow, a disgruntled look on his face. Huh? Are you really covering your ears? I am going to sing songs from my hometown until you wake up. Just so you know, I learned sound martial arts while I was alive. The voice threatens. He pulls the blanket over himself as he senses danger. I could decapitate at least 30 heads with a single verse. The blanket is ripped away as he lies angrily in bed, eyes squeezed shut. Do you even know what time it is? What time is it, then? The man with pink hair asks. He is met with a furious glare from the man with dark hair, who holds up his phone. It's still 4 a.m., you crazy asshole. He yells, tears streaming down his face, as the clock flashes 4:01 a.m. The man with pink hair remains unfazed. Even bugs start crawling at 4 a.m., he states, since you're weaker than a bug, you should wake up earlier. You're just saying that because you're bored from your inability to sleep, he retorts, visibly annoyed. ID always wondered why the Sword Saint trained at 4 a.m. every morning. He yells furiously, turns out it's not because he was hardworking, but because you annoyed the sleep out of him. The man with dark hair sits calmly on the bed as someone shouts, all right. I woke you up because I was bored, happy? Everything fades to black, the feeling of anger almost tangible. I want to kill you thanks to that. You get to wake up early and train, so be thankful. The voice continues, now get up and bow down to me. He looks up in surprise at the commanding hand before him. If you have a problem with it, why don't you try dying yourself? A man with short red hair appears. I am already dead, so you can't kill me. He crosses his arms, a confident smirk on his face. Silence falls. Oh, right, you can't die even if you want to. You zombie-ass motherfucker, the voice sighs. From today on, your name is Zombie Kim. Damn it, he mutters, concern and frustration etched on his face. The man with red hair walks down a city street as the sky begins to lighten. He runs down the street, the man with red hair now floating serenely above him. Hey zombie, let me remind you again, the man with red hair says, his face unreadable. Other than your perseverance, you don't have any talent. I prefer to start teaching from the basics, but you're not at a level where that's possible yet. You're somehow a tier below being able to learn the basics, he states, watching as the man with gray hair clenches his fist. It's already been 4 days since I copied the sword throne skill from the sword saint. I killed Yu Su-ha one more time since then, he thinks to himself. He stands alone in a quiet forest, streaks of red and black energy radiating from him. He walks quickly down a city sidewalk, an older man trailing cautiously behind him, and avoided the sword saint as much as possible. In terms of potential, you're like a bottomless black hole, the man with red hair shouts, exasperated. Dang, that's so cool. I am so jealous. Don't distract me. He leaps into the air, delivering a powerful kick. While a few I am running, the other man yells, desperately sprinting away. I am currently following the training routine that the guardian spirit made for me, the man with red hair says, making an okay sign with his hand. That's why I am saying you need special guidance. And in order to receive special guidance, you need to pay the high tuition. He leans closer, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Hey zombie, let's go win the lottery. She stands confidently before the cityscape. Their official name is Merchants Union. The guild master is the rank 3 hunter, Countess. She is the only one who possesses the skill that lets the user trade with the outside world. 2 hands reach out, about to touch a glowing orb. Due to this cheat skill, Sang Ryan has a monopoly on the tower's economy. Thank you for coming to Sang Ryan. What can I help you with? A man wearing cat ears asks. A young man with a mischievous grin smiles back. He carefully stacks the lottery tickets, and it became the only place in Babylon that sold lottery tickets. I came to collect my lottery winnings, he announces confidently. The man with cat ears beams excitedly at him. Hey, I've always been curious, but do you know why they're always wearing cat ears? One man whispers, haha, it's nothing. She likes cats so much that she makes regular people wear cat ears. I can guarantee that she's a pervert, the man says. Have you double-checked the date? The man throws his head back, laughing. You can't redeem a ticket that you bought more than 2 years ago. This is the first thing I did after getting the guardian spirit, he thinks. That's fine. I bought this last week, the man with cat ears assures him. He smiles, remembering what happened earlier that day. The sword spirit said that I needed some starting capital, he thinks, so I needed to win the lottery at least once. All right, can I check your identifica? The waiter starts to ask. His eyes widen in shock as he sees the identification. He stares at the lottery ticket. Sang Ryan Happiness Lottery, it reads, first place prize, 53,000 grams. His jaw drops as he processes the information. Previous winners, 43,000 grams, 41,000 grams, 49,000 grams, the holographic display flickers. He smirks quietly as murmurs erupt around him. First place? Someone asks, stunned. The red-haired man throws his head back in amusement, muttering, wow, making money is pretty easy, huh? The young man in the cat-eared hat stares in shock. I've confirmed your number. See, can you give us a second? The confident red-haired man simply nods as a nearby employee assures him, he'll call the manager right away, sir. The man with ginger hair drums his fingers impatiently on the bar. Yeah. Take your time. A voice from off-screen questions, hey zombie, what if you get robbed in an alleyway or something? The dark-haired man in the blue jacket smirks slyly. Before I return to this time, he begins. Yu Su-ha had also used this skill to win some lotteries. There was something I learned from that. This isn't something that can be hidden even if you tried. The red-haired man stares in confusion, his hand flying to his temple. Even if you tried, the man in the blue jacket finishes as a man in a suit watches from the background. A thought bubble hangs in the air, filled with worry. If it's going to be revealed one way or another, it's safer to just be open about it, it reads on one side. If a winner is attacked, the party that takes the hardest hit is the Sangrian Guild, it concludes on the other. A kind-looking older man with a cat-eared headband smiles warmly, thank you for waiting. The older man gestures calmly with one hand, I am the manager here, Arthur Taylor. The dark-haired man nods to the older man in the cat-eared headband. I am also known as Safekeeper, the older man offers with a small smile. Please feel free to call me by my alias. I am Gong Ya. That's a fitting nickname for this guild. The dark-haired man replies, glancing back at the red-haired man. An astonished thought bubble appears, containing a single shocked statement. If he has an alias, he's a ranker who's at least in the top 300. The older man throws his head back and laughs, his cat-eared headband slightly askew. Haha, I hear that often, he chuckles. Come with me to the upper floors. He instructs, turning to the man in the blue jacket. The red-haired man smirks, red eyes gleaming, because I'm a customer worth 50,000 grams. The dark-haired man stares in shock. The taller man pulls the shorter man into a warm embrace, chuckling. I feel like you get impressed a little too easily because you've never received this kind of treatment before. The brown-haired man scowls. Can't you shut up for like 1 second? Red light flickers across the red-haired man's face as he listens to the voice echoing around him. You shouldn't be such a pushover. Take after me. The voice booms, just believe everyone in the world exists for you to step on. The red-haired man lunges, a manic grin splitting his face, while the brown-haired man scrambles back in fear. A thought bubble appears, filled with disgust. Are all people with Emperor in their name a psychopath? It wonders. They're people I never want to take after. The man in the cat-eared headband peers down, eyebrows furrowed in concern. Sir, is there something wrong? He asks gently. The young man in the blue shirt starts in surprise. It's nothing. I was just spacing out for a second. That's a relief. The voice of the older man says, you had a concerned face. The older man's face softens sympathetically. I was wondering if anyone treated you rudely before I got there. Tears welling in his eyes, the brown-haired man chokes out a single, odd whisper. Is he an angel? The red-haired man can only stare in confusion. The man in the teal jacket clutches his chest, speechless with astonishment. So easy, the other man says, a hint of amusement in his voice. The older man in the cat-eared hat gestures toward a grand, intricately designed door. The young man stares, jaw slack with disbelief, as the older man's voice rings out, this is the prize that you won. The older man gestures gracefully towards a gleaming mountain of gold coins piled high upon an ornate chest. 53,000 gold, he announces. This is gold that equates to over $5 million where I come from. The young man thinks to himself. The young man swallows hard, a bead of sweat trickling down his nervous face. The camera pans over a table littered with empty bottles. With this amount of money, a voice whispers, heavy with unspoken implications. You can take it all or leave it to the Sangrian Guild safe, the older man's voice says from behind the younger. I can probably live comfortably for the young man begins. The rest of my life, he finishes, staring out at the luxurious room. If success was my goal, then I've already achieved it. Deep in a serene forest bathed in glowing lights, the red-haired man clasps hands with the man in black. Small step, a voice whispers through the trees. The young man closes his eyes, a brilliant yellow light emanating from his chest. The young man in the blue shirt folds his arms. I've already experienced far more beautiful gold before, he states, I'll keep it in the Sangrian safe. I personally recommend that all the winners do. The older man in the cat-eared hat agrees, a knowing smile on his face. The young man stands with his back to the older, considering. I understand that they want to take it with them, but there are bad people. The older man begins. A slow smile spreads across the young man's face as he reaches for a gold coin. And he murmurs. He turns back, his tone casual but with an underlying note of certainty. I'd like to buy Sangrian's honorary guild member title. It takes 10,000 gold to become a second-class honorary member, right? He asks, already reaching for his winnings. I'll pay up front. The older man raises an eyebrow, peering down at the young man over his round spectacles. Do you not yet have a guild you're a member of, sir? The young man leans back, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips. Yeah. The red-haired man chuckles, shaking his head in amusement. You're smarter than I thought, he admits. A guild isn't just a simple friend group for hunters. A voice explains. The biggest reason hunters join a guild is because 4 figures stand bathed in the blue light of a holographic shield, their faces a mixture of determination and apprehension. 5 pairs of hands clasped together, radiating a blinding light. They want to be protected. A voice exclaims, "You're quite clever." The young man in the blue shirt leans forward conspiratorially. There are the guards and the Hunter Association, he murmurs, but the city is too wild to rely on just the 2 of them. The young man in the black turtleneck dangles helplessly as the man with the gold earring sneers down at him, his eyes cold and predatory. The vast cityscape sprawls below, dwarfing the figure standing at its edge. You can tell that from how the Flame Emperor and the Sword Saint killed me recently. The young man says. A figure wreathed in fire extends a hand, a white-hot beam of energy lancing from their fingertip. The Flame Emperor was never bound to a guild and was proud of his freedom. A voice explains. He won the lottery twice, but he probably never paid a protection fee to anyone. Shimmering purple liquid streams from a bottle held in a gloved hand, swirling ominously as it pools beneath the smirking face of the man with the silver earring. That's why he almost got poisoned, a voice whispers. A shadowy figure leans in, a gloved hand holding a pen outstretched. One more thing, the figure murmurs. Yes, anything is fine, the young man replies quickly. The man in the suit meticulously writes in his book, I live in a cheap 1-bedroom right now. I'll give you the rent, above the man's head. So can you get me a nice place to stay at? The man in the blue jacket smiles confidently, adding, and if any news outlet asks who the first place winner was, can you please let them know that it was an anonymous honorary member of the Sangryung Guild? In a richly adorned study, a distinguished gentleman with a meticulously groomed mustache pauses his writing, deep in thought. The older gentleman adjusts his cat-eared hat, startled by the imposing younger man with fiery red hair who leans in closely and says, You're very prepared, sir. Adjusting his dark notebook, the man in the well-tailored suit hears a voice say, Lol. Look at his face. The man with the white collar smirks, pleased with himself as he thinks, he probably thought that you were a pushover. Adjusting his blue jacket, he confidently remarks, I mean, it's a big world out there. Gotta at least do a little bit of preparation. The red-haired man looks up, a smug grin on his face as he asks, Who was the one who called me a pushover again? Did I say that? I don't remember. The older man in the cat-eared hat glares angrily as he retorts, You're correct, sir. That dumbass emperor. The man with brown hair looks worried as a large hand rests on his shoulder and a deep voice booms, Well, I guess you're managing pretty well on your own. I thought I'd need to change your diapers, too. The red-haired man smirks arrogantly, the words, I'd hate you less if you didn't speak, man. Echoing around him. The man in the blue shirt smiles confidently, hearing the words, You look pretty happy, too. Wash over him. The man in the blue jacket admires the vast pile of glowing coins before him, a symbol of his newfound wealth. A single gold coin gleams, representing a chance to rewrite the past, to reclaim the power lost in pursuit of revenge after 4,000 deaths and a return 4,000 days back in time. A blue-sleeved hand holds the glowing coin aloft, the words it's time to enjoy it, signaling a new, powerful path. The young man in the orange and white sneakers strides confidently down the hallway, oblivious to the figure dangling upside down above him. The red-haired man looks down smugly, asking, And you just got enough to pay for it? What do you think is the next step? The man in the blue shirt pauses thoughtfully, murmuring, a competent teacher? The red-haired man scowls with frustration, exclaiming, he's already in front of you. The man in the blue shirt narrows his eyes, muttering, shameless, under his breath. Light blue wisps dance across a white background, accompanied by the words, It's textbooks. Scrolls to teach you martial arts skills. Arms crossed and brow furrowed, the red-haired man retorts, or potions to boost your physical abilities. The red-haired man jabs a finger accusingly as he exclaims, But at your level, you won't be able to learn anything by reading a scroll. The man in the blue jacket tries to soothe the anxious man beside him, saying, "So the only thing you can get is potions. Extremely good ones." The dark-haired man in the blue jacket clutches his chest, distressed as he asks, "How good does it have to be?" Lost in contemplation, the red-haired man strokes his chin, struggling to find a solution. The red-haired man points emphatically, explaining, "I think it was called the Alchemy Castle because there were a bunch of healers and alchemists. You need something made by the best person there. I know a store you can go to." Eyes wide with alarm, the man in the blue jacket sputters, "Aren't those extremely expensive?" A sly smirk spreads across the red-haired man's face as he points and asks, "Of course. You want to know how much?" The red-haired man leans in, whispering conspiratorially to the shocked man in the blue jacket. The man in the blue jacket stumbles back in alarm, crying, "Wha, wait." The red-haired man calls after him, pleading, "I can get, like 4 bottles with my entire fortune." An irritated voice booms, "You can probably get 5 if you get a bundle deal. If you want someone to blame, then blame your lack of talent. Now shut up and follow me." The man in the blue jacket runs frantically, his cry of awe, "Slow down," echoing behind him. Whoa! The man in the blue jacket crumples to the ground, swiftly taken down by a kick from the red-haired man in the white GI. "Why did you stop all of a sudden?" The red-haired man's question is met with a frantic, "Gong ya, hide." As the man in the blue jacket ducks down, eyes blazing with determination, the red-haired man in the white GI stands ready to fight. The red-haired man strides purposefully forward, casually mentioning, "I forgot to tell you, but..." Huh? The man in the blue jacket trails behind, confusion etched on his face. Alone and filled with anxiety, the man in the blue jacket glances nervously to his right. Red sneakers hit the gray bricks as someone in a blue jacket hurries forward. The red-haired man in the white GI points with surprise, exclaiming, "This is Gramps' go-to potion store. Tell me things like that in advance." The white-haired man in the blue suit brandishes his sword, panic in his eyes. "Why couldn't you say this earlier?" The dark-haired man in the light blue shirt throws his hands up in frustration. The white-haired man in the blue suit glowers, his disappointment palpable. Red shoes echo on the tiled floor as the lone figure walks on. Steely blue eyes, filled with determination, pierce from the shadows. The dark-haired man hides behind a dumpster, fear etched on his face, as a white-haired man and a red-haired woman approach. Eyes wide with terror, the dark-haired man claps both hands over his mouth. He peeks nervously from behind his hands, whispering, "What should I do? It's gonna be a pain if I get caught here." An old man in a blue suit walks briskly away, disappearing into the depths of a mysterious room. Fear washes over the young man as he sits on the floor, his hands muffling his heavy breaths. Suddenly, a red-haired man standing by a dumpster gasps in disbelief, "Out of all the places to hide, we picked a trash can." Crouched nervously behind the grimy dumpster, the dark-haired man whispers, "Bad news. If Gramps is here, then..." A fierce intensity burns in the eyes of a man with long red hair as he glares angrily. His jaw drops in astonishment, the red-haired man stammers, "He probably came to clear out the potions." A sense of urgency hangs in the air outside the building as a voice calls out, "Gong ya, quick. Follow me." The red-haired man sprints away, his face etched with determination, as the other man chases after him, yelling in confusion, "Wah." Rage contorts the red-haired man's face as he roars furiously, while the black-haired man watches in stunned silence. A piercing shriek of agony, "Ah!" echoes through the air. A desperate cry pierces the air, "No." The old man in the blue suit, cane gripped tightly in his hand, eyes the woman in yellow with suspicion as the younger man strides confidently away. Distress clouds the red-haired man's features as he cries out, "We were too late. What should we do? That's the best store in the area." He reaches out a hand towards his companion, his brow furrowed with worry, but the other man only responds with a somber. A thought bubbles up, cautious but clear. It would be too risky to use the same shop as the Sword Saint. A single word, but, hangs in the air, filled with a glimmer of hope as a finger hovers over the Google search bar on a smartphone. Disbelief tightens its grip as the search results on the Hunter rankings page declare, not in the top 20, with Sword Saint holding firmly to the number 1 spot. Disappointment washes over the man in the blue jacket as he mutters, "Not in the top 100 either. Not even in the top 300. The red-haired man stares at his phone. "They're not here." The other man scoffs. "What's not there? Your luck?" Looking down at his phone, a slow smile spreads across the face of the man in the blue jacket as he murmurs, "No, quite the opposite, in fact." The man in the blue jacket flashes a confident smile. "I don't think I have to spend as much money as you said." As he turns to leave, the red-haired man stares after him, bewildered. "What?" Eyes bright with excitement, the man in the blue jacket murmurs, "We can probably get those potions pretty cheap." A smug grin plays on his lips as he strides down the street, pleased with his own ingenuity. A whisper, heavy with intrigue, hangs in the air, "I know a pretty good alchemist." He walks deeper into the shadowy alleyway, two imposing figures flanking him, as if to confirm his companion's wary question. "You know you're going deeper into the slums, right?" The man in the gray t-shirt stands tall, his gaze unwavering, as he addresses the old man seated on the ground before him. With a confident, "PCHK," his foot splashes into a puddle, a silent promise of the action to come. Incredulity colors the red-haired man's voice. "A decent alchemist lives in a place like this?" The other man, back turned as he continues walking, replies with quiet conviction, "They're not just decent, they're a once-in-a-generation genius." The red-haired man throws his hands up in disbelief. "Stop capping. Why would a genius like that be in a place like this?" Hands on his hips, he challenges the other man, "All right. Don't believe me, then." Ignoring the skeptical tisk from the two men behind him, the man in the blue shirt sighs, "Ah." His shoulders slumping with a hint of resignation. The old man, hunched over in embarrassment, mutters, "They were trying to see if I was worth robbing, but they gave up because they saw me talking to myself and thought I was crazy." His companion walks away, worry etched on his face. "What would they say if they found out how much I have in my pocket?" A condescending voice rings out, thick with sarcasm, "Hey zombie. You do know how to get there, right?" Unfazed, the young man in the blue jacket ascends the stairs, where the red-haired man sits in peaceful meditation. A desperate plea hangs in the air, Please don't take my equipment." Exasperation drips from every word. "Do you know how many times you've asked us that already?" The young man, a satisfied smile spreading across his face, nods towards the other man. "Yep. It looks like we came to the right place." A voice booms, thick with anger, "You're behind half a year's worth of payments, half a year. You have to pay your dues." The man in the gray shirt throws his hands up in desperation, "If you take my equipment, I won't even be able to make a living." But the woman beside him remains silent. The other man, his grip tightening on the woman's arm, sneers, "I don't care. You will never make enough to pay it back anyway." "Seize everything you see," roars the man in the blue shirt, reaching out towards the woman as if to pull her along, but she resists, fear flashing across her face. He turns away, his shoulders slumping as he pleads, "1 week. Please, just 1 more week. No, just 5 days." But a bitter retort cuts him off. "Last time, that 1 week became a month, and that month is now half a year. There are still potions I couldn't finish." He cries out, twisting back to look at the cart as worry creases his brow. Behind him, the woman lies sprawled on the ground, shoving at the cartwheel in frustration. "Goddamn, why was I assigned to some crazy alchemist?" Her eyes widen in alarm as she loses her grip and tumbles backward, a startled "Ah" escaping her lips. 4 figures in black stand impassively, their faces etched with boredom as one offers unhelpful advice. "If you want some advice, find a different career." The muscular man stares down at the fallen woman, his eyes wide with concern. A lone woman with long green hair sits contemplatively on the ground, her gaze drifting towards a cart being pulled by 2 men. 4 figures stand in a line, their whispers revealing their disdain for a struggling store owner. The green-haired woman spins around, a look of concern etched on her face as she hears the accusations thrown her way. In a dimly lit room, the woman throws her head back in annoyance. 2 men watch in amusement as the woman in the white coat laughs, her words met with disbelief. Startled, the green-haired woman glances over her shoulder, her hand outstretched as she walks away from a dismissive crowd. Nervous and unsure, the woman adjusts her glasses. The woman throws her hands up in shock, her mouth agape as she processes the harsh rejection. A red-haired man fixes a serious gaze on the green-haired woman, a sense of unease hanging in the air. With an open hand and a disappointed frown, the man voices his doubts about the once-in-a-generation genius, leaving the woman to stare dejectedly at the ground. Confused, two men in a yellow-tinged alley share a perplexed look. What? The red-haired man explodes, his face contorted in anger, while his companion smirks. A man in a blue jacket stares in shock, his eyes wide with concern as the green-haired woman kneels on the ground, struggling with an unseen force. A giddy man with brown hair scans his surroundings, his eagerness palpable, as he stands before the indifferent green-haired woman. On a gray pavement, the green-haired woman glares down at the apprehensive man, her impatience evident in her tense posture. "Are you still open?" The woman with green hair gasps, her face etched with alarm and confusion. With a serious expression, the green-haired woman stands against a blue and gray backdrop, her request for an expensive order echoing her determined spirit. The green-haired woman, now adorned with a braid and a confident aura, commands attention as the master alchemist. Standing before a building with large windows, the green-haired woman gapes in surprise at the framed message revealing her future. "Ah, yes, yes, of course," the woman exclaims, her earlier surprise replaced with enthusiastic confidence as she assures her client of her abilities. Against a pale orange background, the green-haired woman clutches her glasses, her anxiety growing as she stammers, but how expensive are we talking?" I'm not sure. Maybe around 20K? The woman replies casually, her words sending a wave of shock through the green-haired woman. The green-haired woman can only manage a stunned whisper, her eyes wide with disbelief. A man with short brown hair pauses on the street, his mind racing with the exciting possibility of connecting with a high-ranking individual. Before they even enter the ranks, the green-haired woman thinks incredulously as the man beside her beams with a self-satisfied grin. Eyes wide with worry, the brown-haired man stares at the ground, a perplexed frown etched on his face as he questions the situation unfolding before him. With a confident smirk and a mischievous glint in his eye, the man in the blue jacket throws a challenging question over his shoulder. A bold declaration hangs in the air, encased in a thought bubble, as the man confidently promises unwavering loyalty. With a warm smile and an inviting gesture, the green-haired woman welcomes her guest into her humble abode. The brown-haired man hesitates at the threshold, his gaze fixed on the floor, while the woman awaits his response. The green-haired woman gapes in shock, her eyes wide as she glances back at the nervous brown-haired man, while a muscular, red-haired man behind them surveys the scene with a serious expression. The woman in the white coat and the man in the blue jacket stand frozen, their surprise palpable in the shared look of bewilderment. Amidst a jumble of crates and a precarious ladder, the green-haired woman gestures urgently, her face etched with an anxious plea. A shadowy figure, shrouded in darkness, looms over a stack of boxes, creating an air of mystery and intrigue. A muscular man with red hair gasps in astonishment, while beside him, a young boy cowers, his eyes wide with fear. A grimace twists the red-haired man's face as he covers his ears, his disgust evident in the cramped space. Anxiety clouds the face of the crouching man in the blue shirt as he shoots a worried glance towards the green-haired woman standing behind a barrel. Are you really going to commission me for 20K gold? The question hangs in the air, laced with disbelief. The green-haired woman offers a hesitant smile, her hands clasped nervously in front of her, a flickering candle casting long shadows across her face. "If you really don't believe me, should I pay up front?" The man in the blue jacket offers with a confident grin, oblivious to the flustered woman beside him. "Actually, if possible, payment up front would be." The green-haired woman trails off. She's so broke that she can't display basic manners. The man in the blue jacket chuckles, his arrogance on full display as he grants permission to empty his safe. "As much as I need." The green-haired woman murmurs anxiously, her gaze darting nervously to the side. "Of course, please try and keep the budget within 20K gold if possible." The man in the white shirt says with a relaxed smile, his tone betraying his concern for limited funds. "Then, what potions do you want to commission?" The green-haired man asks, his brow furrowed in concentration as he prepares to take notes. "If you want to commission me to manufacture illegal drugs, I would like to decline." The green-haired man states firmly, his discomfort evident in the tense atmosphere. On principle, that's the one thing I will not make. The green-haired man declares, his gaze unwavering as he sets a firm boundary. The green-haired man stands lost in thought, impressed by the woman's integrity in the face of financial ruin. You don't have to worry, I swear it's not drugs. The green-haired man assures, his kind eyes meeting the brown-haired man's with reassuring sincerity. So, exactly what kind of potion do you want to commission? The green-haired man inquires, his pen poised over his notepad as the brown-haired man launches into an enthusiastic explanation. The smug man in the blue jacket thinks to himself, well, all right. She doesn't seem all that skilled, but I'll give you the recipe. As he looks at the upset, muscular man with red hair. Listen closely. The serious man with red hair says, I'll only explain this to you once. The man in the blue jacket intently writes down, the liver of a rabbit pig, as instructed. The eyes of a balloon cat, the skin of a giant desert worm. He continues, watching the doubtful man in the blue jacket as a man with long curly green hair watches in surprise. Holding the book, the startled woman with long green hair reads aloud. A total of 23 ingredients, is that right? And continues, and the tail of a dirt lizard. Yeah, that's it for the ingredients. The serious red-haired man confirms. Now, in terms of how it's produced, that all depends on the pharmacist's skill. That is correct, the woman in the white coat states plainly. He stares intensely at the viewer. These would all combine together to produce an effect that increases your reaction speed. He declares. On the table amongst herbs and a lit candle, a parchment reads it's an extremely high-level recipe. You create it by mixing all the ingredients at once instead of refining them one at a time, right? The woman with green hair sits on a stool, intently studying the book in her hands. That's indeed right. The red-haired man stammers, surprised. The man in the blue shirt stares with wide eyes. That's right, he confirms. Of course, the woman with long green hair exclaims with a happy smile. Normally, the skin of a giant desert worm has a small amount of poison, he explains. One of the ways to nullify this poison is to consume the liver of a rabbit pig. He continues, however, depending on how you consume it, the effects are like night and day, if it was refined. Yeah, these kinds of experts exist, the green-haired woman says with a proud smirk. The red-haired man stares, surprised, while the man in the blue jacket looks impressed. Instead, there are other side effects that follow. He warns, forcibly increasing your metabolism is fundamentally. How soon can you prepare this? The man in the blue jacket asks with a hopeful smile. The green-haired woman looks up from her book, concerned. 4 days, she states firmly, staring intently at the man in the blue jacket reflected in her glasses. As long as there is enough money, I can make it in 4 days. She stammers, normally, I could make it even sooner, but I need to repurchase my equipment, she explains. The green-haired woman holds her hands up, counting on her fingers as she thinks. Those who have a prescription from the master alchemist, please come on in. The man shouts, why are you standing in front of me? I've been waiting for a year now. A man in white cries out, throwing his hands in the air. A year? I've been waiting for a year and a half. The man in the blue jacket exclaims, exasperated. The man in the blue jacket smiles smugly, pleased with himself as the green-haired woman stares at him with wide eyes. As they walk through the city at sunset, the man in the blue jacket complains. Hey, I still don't approve of her. Do you know how many people there are that talk a good game but have garbage skills? He rants as the man in white floats beside him, his arms outstretched. Those are the kinds of people that grow up to sell snake oil. Dang, we just wasted good money. Where did you learn that recipe? The man with red hair asks, stunned. The man in the blue jacket is equally surprised. It's a recipe I conjured myself. He announces proudly, it's the greatest potion invented after drinking all sorts of poisons myself. He tilts his head back with a smug smile. She complimented it as a high-level recipe. He brags. She was able to recognize the value of the recipe at once, so try trusting her. The red-haired man says, trying to stay calm. Even though she may be like that now, she becomes the head honcho of the alchemy castle 10 years later. The man with red hair crosses his arms and scowls, unconvinced. A thought bubble appears above the scowling man's head. Mark my words, zombie. It reads, I bet she is going to just take your money and run. A young man with green hair sadly holds out a box. I'm sorry, he mumbles. I wanted to get it to you sooner, but it took longer than expected trying out various combinations. 4 days later, the woman with short green hair smiles, holding 3 boxes. Residence provided by Sang Ryan. The man in green reads. The red-haired man frowns. But didn't you originally say it would take 4 days? It's okay, the man in green assures him. There are 3 boxes with 30 potions each. The man in green says with a smile. So that should be about 30 days worth. He adds, handing the surprised woman a box. The man in green beams. This was 15 times more cost-efficient than the store suggested by the guardian spirit, he exclaims. The man in green hesitates, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. Hey, you were insulting me in your head. This is how you're supposed to spend money. Yes? He asks innocently. Me in your head, weren't you? The red-haired man sputters as the green-haired woman watches calmly. This might be weird to ask now. The green-haired woman begins, but why did you give such a costly commission to an unknown pharmacist like me? While I am confident in my skills, she says quietly, just by looking at the recipe provided, I think there are only about 2 people in Babylon who could make this. But people treat me like a total nutcase. She finishes sadly, her back to the viewer. The reason, the man in green states, it's because the pharmacist standing in front of me is a once-in-a-generation genius. But is that the only reason? A voice calls out. The area has been secured. Another voice reports, but there might be survivors inside. Let's send in a rescue squad. The woman with green hair gasps, her eyes widening in alarm as she hears the commotion. The one who came running to the scene faster than anyone else when the city was on fire. Someone muses. She said she had something to do tonight. It's probably a date? I've seen her together with the Flame Emperor a lot lately. The woman with green hair narrows her eyes, deep in thought. Someone who wasn't fooled by the Flame Emperor. She thinks, something about him creeps me out. She's skilled, kind, and even a good judge of character. She thinks, looking down at the floor. The man in the green shirt turns towards her, a serious expression on his face. Pardon? The woman with green hair stammers, startled. Someone like her? Because you seem kind, he explains. I helped you out because you seem kind. The man in green says with a smirk. Well, I think you would have been successful even without me. I think good hunters like us need to succeed. He continues, holding out his hand. So that we can help each other later on. The green-haired woman stares at his outstretched hand, a flicker of sadness in her eyes. I want to wish both of us the best, she thinks. It's frustrating to see only crazy-ass psychopaths succeed. The man in green smiles faintly. I meant everything I said, he assures her. The green-haired woman states firmly, so much so, that I don't think I can be any more honest than this. That's true, she agrees confidently. We need to succeed first in order to change the world. With a bright smile, she excitedly shakes the man's hand as a sparkling deal appears above them. If you have anything else you want to order, she says excitedly, call me anytime. I'll always prioritize your request. I'd love nothing more, he says warmly, waving goodbye to the green-haired woman as he departs the luxurious lobby. Deal, he exclaims, happily waving as he heads out. The red-haired man smirks at the annoyed dark-haired man. What? He asks. Good hunters, like us. Clenching his fists nervously, the dark-haired man stammers. I know I said something embarrassing, let's just train. The next day, the forest bathes serenely in the sunlight, the air filled with the promise of a moving to the floor 3 hunting grounds. He gazes upward in awe at the muscular, ponytailed man descending from the light, 3 orcs flanking him, into the lush forest. These guys are a bit too much for me to handle. He gulps nervously, eyeing the 2 menacing orcs, one gripping a club and the other a large sword. So, what should I do? He wonders fearfully, as the 2 orcs, one brandishing an axe and the other a sword, snarl at him. First, drink the potion, commands the red-haired man, eyes closed sternly as he sits cross-legged, while the dark-haired man stands before him, worry etched on his face. He carefully pries open the lid of the black cylindrical container. The red-haired man watches intently as he calmly sips from the black container. HM? He ponders. It tastes very normal? There's a hint of lemon, and I think there's some honey. His brow furrowed in suspicion, he continues to analyze the taste. He shouts in surprise, staring at the sudden hole in his shirt. What's happening? He gasps, reaching out into the night, his face a mask of panic. His breath catches in his throat, fear gripping him as he realizes the gravity of the situation. He lies sprawled on his back, gazing upward, a wave of vulnerability washing over him. Ah, the red-haired man cries out in pain as if struck by an invisible force, the dark-haired man watching in distress. Oh, impressive. A voice wonders, so her skills were the real deal. What is he saying? He groans, clutching his head. Don't repeat yourself. My head. Feels like it's going to explode. How is it? The red-haired man snarls, jaw clenched. It feels like you can count every single hair on your head, right? Even the feeling of your sweat dripping must feel lively. He exclaims, eyes squeezed shut in anticipation. That is the effect of the potion. A voice booms, as a monstrous, red-outlined mouth with rainbow-colored teeth fills the frame. It increases the rate at which you perceive reality. The voice explains, the monstrous mouth looming above. His eyes, now ringed with rainbows, focus intently upwards. Can you not feel it? The voice questions, as the air shimmers with a rainbow glow. What are you talking about? He stammers. He recoils in fear as a dark red figure, clutching a white stick, lunges towards him, his chest glowing red, his body outlined in a faint green. The thing squirming around in your heart. A voice echoes, as his heart throbs rapidly, a pulsing red mass outlined in frantic lines. He pushes himself up off the ground, his brow furrowed in confusion and unease. That's aura, the voice explains, as he stares down in astonishment. It exists inside every hunter that enters the tower. The voice continues, as the two men listen intently. Most just live their days without being able to perceive it. Hee. The voice chuckles, how freely you can control this aura. That will be the deciding factor. As he grips his head, anxiety etched on his face. Normally, you'd feel the flow by meditating in this state. The red-haired man explains, a serene smile on his face, as the green-haired man strains with the effort. But that would take too long. The voice interjects, if you lack talent, you need to at least work hard. As he lies there, overwhelmed and defeated, he shrinks back in terror as a grotesque green monster, eyes burning red, looms over him, its gaping maw drooling. Run, Kim Zombie. A voice urges as he scrambles to his feet, his eyes wide with terror.